Hello and welcome to IP Study video lectures. Today we are going to discuss chapter number 1 of grade 8 social science. The chapter name is The Modern Period. In this particular chapter we are going to focus about the third most important period in the Indian history. In class 6 we studied in detail about ancient history, then in class 7 we studied about medieval history, and now we are going to focus on modern history. History is a very intriguing subject. It is through the learning of this subject that we understand how our present has shaped. We understand the different circumstances that exist in our present. We look at the architecture, we look at the social practices, we look at even the political events. So whatever is happening today has something to do with our past. You take example of India. We got independent in the year 1947, and we say that our economic growth is not as fast as maybe you can say America or Canada and other countries. But why is that? Because before 1947 we were under British rule. Even before that we were ruled by Mughals and different Turks and Afghan rulers who had come from different parts of the world to our country. They actually took our resources which hampered our growth. So it is through learning history that we understand the present context. And yes, it is important to learn about the futuristic things. You can say about artificial intelligence, robotics, graphic designing, and all these things. But yes, without learning about our past, we cannot understand the complete picture which we are seeing around us. Right? So that is why we say history is very important, which is covered in the introduction of this chapter. Now, history is very much about dates. We all, in fact, many people who dislike studying history talk about that there's so much to remember. When was Akbar born? When did Babur come to India? When was this battle fought? When was that battle fought? So all these details actually make some people not like history. But history, yes, dates are very important in history, but dates are not the only important things. The importance of dates is that it is through learning of these dates that we learn about specific events or how things change from one scenario to another. Take for example the Battle of Panipat. The Battle of Panipat was important because it was after winning this battle that Babur came into power. Before that, it was Ibrahim Lodi who was in power, the Lodi dynasty, and it was the Delhi Sultanate, we say that, which comprised of 5 different dynasties that was in power. But when Babur defeated him, it was the establishment of the Mughal Empire, which was going to rule our country for about 350 years. So see, that is why it is so important, this particular Battle of Panipat, which was, if you remember it from previous class, it was fought in the year 1526. So it actually established the Mughal Empire in our country, which ruled for a very long time, and it has still a lot of, you can say, imprints on our present, because you can see many monuments, of course, very notably the Taj Mahal, Red Fort, and many others were built during this particular time period, right? So many things that were started by the Mughals or were introduced during the Mughal times, they are prevalent even now. But see, as I was discussing before, dates are important. They help us understand important events. But sometimes we don't have dates for every particular event in our history. You can take example of discovery of fire or invention of wheel. We don't know exactly when these things were discovered and invented. Right. We have a rough idea because of carbon dating and other technologies. We have a rough idea when these particular things existed, but we don't have a proper time. Even talking about the modern times, you take example of the decline of Mughal Empire only. We say that, in fact, many historians believe that it was after the death of Aurangzeb, who was the last great ruler of the Mughal dynasty, that the Mughal dynasty was beginning to decline. But let's look at the dates. Aurangzeb actually died in the year 1707, but the last Mughal emperor Bahadur Shah Zafar ruled till about 1857, which means 150 years later. So, even though Aurangzeb's death was a big setback for Mughals, they continued to rule for about 150 years. That shows us that sometimes it is difficult to understand how dates are contributing to particular history. So dates are important, but we don't have set dates for every particular event. That is why we need to understand the different scenarios as well. We have to look at different circumstances as well. Like if you look at why Mughals declined, well, Aurangzeb's death was definitely one major event because he was a very strong ruler, but his policies were not that great. So that is another factor. And the rulers that came after Aurangzeb, they were not able to administer the large empire that they had in the manner that Aurangzeb or previous rulers were able to. Right. Also, the Britishers had come to India. They were getting stronger. Different groups like Marathas, the Sikhs, the Rajputs, their kingdoms were also rising. So we see that there were different factors that led to the actual decline of the Mughal Empire. And that is why we say it's very important to understand the different perspectives when we are studying history. Not just about the who is rising or who is not rising, but also to understand the different socio-economic changes, the political changes, the how the lives of people are changing, what kind of occupation they are doing. So we need to understand all that. History is not only about kings and queens when they came, when they fought their wars and when they lost their wars. No, history is about everyone. It is about the weavers, the farmers who existed at that time, what arts and traditions did they follow. So when we study history, and we will follow that approach throughout this book, that we will learn about all the different perspectives that actually shaped the history of our country. Right. Now, another important aspect in the studying of history is learning about different periods. So periodization is the way in which we divide our past into different periods. You see, changes keep on happening, but when these changes are so significant that we cannot put that time frame into one particular perspective, then we need help of these periods. Like one of the most popular division of periods is ancient, medieval and modern. It is the perspective which even we follow commonly. However, there are some shortcomings with this classification also. We will discuss that. But yes, it's a classification that we follow in our understanding. Many historians do follow this in the context of Indian history as well. Under this classification, the time period till 700 CE is the ancient period. From 700 CE to 1750 CE, it is the medieval period, and after that 1750 till now, it is the modern period. So we will study about these periods. So first we will discuss how James Mill divided Indian history. James Mill was an economist and a political philosopher, so he was very renowned. How did he divide Indian history? Basically, he divided on the basis of who the rulers were. So, for the first period of the Indian history, he called it Hindu period. Then, when the Turks and Afghans came to India and they became the rulers, now because they followed Islam, they were Muslim rulers, so he called it a Muslim period. And after that, when the Britishers came to India, he called it a British period, right? So this is how he divided Indian history as Hindu, Muslim and British. He was of the view that the Indians were very ignorant, very superstitious. They followed their religious beliefs to the with a lot of fundamentalism. So he basically believed that Indians were very backward, and it was the British rule that made Indians modern, which brought significant changes in the lives of the people. But many historians do not agree with this view. they criticize his point of view, saying that even during the ancient times, even during the medieval times, many important innovations, many modernizations had already occurred. Right? They argued that even, not just technologically wise, but even politically, even economically, you will see that different things had come to existence. Yes, it can be argued that it was after the Industrial Revolution that many modern technologies came all over the world, but it had not much to do with the British. It was the time that dictated these things. So, this argument that the British actually came and modernized the country, modernized India, is argued by many historians. Also, another criticism with his point of view was that he divided the periods on the basis of religion. But many argued that even in our country, people follow different religious beliefs. Another important aspect was the religion of the ruler was not the religion of every person living in the region. So, it could be the case that the ruler was Muslim, but the majority population was of Hindus. So, religion of the ruler was not the only decisive factor in determining that particular period. So, this is why many historians criticized the point of view which James Mill came with. If you look at India, there was a very well advanced Bronze Age that came into existed during our times. You see, when we talk about the ancient period, we see that ancient period is actually very long. It is from the Stone Age, which is a very long time period, then how it switched to Bronze Age, and then to Iron Age. And as we know, Iron Age is very important because even today we use a lot of material which is made from iron. So this ancient period is very prolonged, and we say from stone to bronze to iron. This is how modernization has occurred. And if we look at our country, India, when we see that our Bronze Age is very well advanced. So we started using bronze before many other people in the world. So that is why it is difficult for us to understand the James Mill point of view, where he says that the modernization came only after the Britishers, right? So this is the Indian historian point of view that we commonly follow, and we were discussing before that the ancient period it is till the 700 CE, then the medieval period is between 700 CE to 1750 CE, when we see the arrival of many Turk and Afghan rulers in our country, and then the modern period, which is related to the arrival of the British, right? And yes, it is true that many modern innovations happened during this period, but then it is not the only thing that happened, right? So this is how we are dividing the different periods in our history. Now let us understand two very important terms that are related to the British period. One is modernization and the other is colonization. So as we discussed, modernization is a very subjective term. Many historians argue that many modern things happened during the times of ancient period and medieval period as well. But yes, when we talk about significant changes, when we see transportation, communication, and many technologies that came into existence and the rapid growth in these technologies, it is in the modern period that it all happens, and that is why this phase is called modernization. And it has something to do with colonization. Now, what is colonization? You see, in the 18th century Europe, Industrial Revolution had begun. Many industries came into existence and they needed resources for these industries so that they can convert those raw materials into finished goods. So to acquire these resources, the European powers, many European countries, traveled to different countries of Asia and Africa and actually made them their colonies. So these colonies were used for their resources. India, as we know, as we understand, is one such colony of the Britishers, where they came and ruled over our country for initially for trade and then to acquire our natural resources, right? So this process is called colonization, and it actually changed the world order at that time, because it were the European powers that ruled over many countries around the world. So in India, this colonial rule is said to be between 1757 to 1947. So the Britishers came to India around 1600s to trade. But when they realized that by ruling over the territories of the country, they can exploit even more resources, they pursued over this idea. So they captured different territories from time to time, and this time frame from 1757 to 1947, they were at their utmost power, and they exploited different resources from our country. So this was also the time period that the Mughal Empire was beginning to decline. So we discussed that earlier also. After Aurangzeb, the future leaders of Mughal Empire were quite weak and inefficient, and taking advantage of that situation and taking advantage of how there was no big regional power in the country, the Britishers slowly and slowly started their subjugation. Subjugation means they started to dominate over the country, and they dominated not only economically but also through their culture, also through the social reforms. So they brought significant changes in how the Indians were living and how they wanted Indians to live. So they had an impact on our politics as well, they had an impact on our economics as well, they had an impact on our education as well, and we will study all these things through the course of this book, where we will see how their rule, the colonial rule, affected the country. Let's move to the next important topic, that is sources of colonial period. When we talk about ancient and medieval history, we see that we have limited sources to study about that time period. There were some artifacts that we dug out and we understood about that time period. There was architecture remains of that time period which gives us information about it. There were coins, manuscripts, inscriptions, but all these were difficult for us to even analyze, right? But when we talk about modern period, because writing systems had developed and printing technology also got modernized, we have books, we have newspapers, we have a lot of printed material from this time period which helps us to understand exactly how things were like. There is less guesswork and more assurances, more clear evidence about the modern period, right? And one very important classification under the sources of history was the administrative records. Now, as Indians, as patriotic Indians, we can criticize many aspects of British rule. But one thing which British were great at, it was the art of recording things. Britishers had record rooms in every government offices where they kept all the important records. These were important documents about what schemes were they launching during the administration, important letters, important contracts. So all these things they kept with them, right? And they give us a good information about that time period. If you look at the Indian rulers before the arrival of the British and even during the time of British, they did not have that great habit of recording things. But the Britishers made sure that everything was written down, right? And they also, beside these office rooms, they also ensured that there were museums and archives in our country. Now, museums are the places where old things are kept, which have, of course, historic significance. And archives are the places where you can find old newspapers, old magazines, so all the printed materials. If you look at this picture, we have the National Archive of India situated in Delhi. So they set up all these institutions which tell us a lot about that time period. But yes, we also have to understand the drawback with the information that the Britishers kept. Now you see, these were administrative or official records that the British maintained. So the point of view was of the British only. You cannot find the information about the common people living in that period. So when we need to look at the lives of common people, we take use of journals, diary entries, biographies. But yes, when we need to understand about the official policies of that period, the belief system of the Britishers, then these administrative records are very useful. So we discuss how there was a lot of information that was kept by the British rulers, and there was lack of information about the ancient and the medieval period because of lack of writing systems. But yes, there were some pre-colonial archives which tell us about those time periods as well. We see many examples of how different information was inscribed on tamr patras or copper plates during this time period. You also see how the different travelers who came to our country like Fa Hien and Huang Sang, they also wrote about India, and they also described India in their own words, in their own versions. We also see how Babarnama, Akbarnama and all these books help us to understand about the different things that existed during the time. And talking about ancient period again, we see about how Ashoka's pillars, the edicts of Ashoka, which are still prevalent in different parts of the country. So these also describe about the social order of that particular time. So yes, Britishers had actually made the, you can say, writing about history a more common phenomena. But yes, there are different examples during the medieval times and even the ancient times where we see that things were written down despite the lack of technology prevailing in those time periods, because yes, paper was invented much later and printing technology was invented even after that. Right. Now let us discuss about the National Museum of India located in Delhi. You can see the picture here. Now why this is important? It is a storehouse of so much information about the ancient, medieval and the modern times of our country. More than 2 lakh pieces of art which tell us about the architecture, about the political times, about the economics of that time period is displayed in this particular museum. There are several other museums in Chennai, Kolkata and Mumbai and different other parts which give us so much information as well. So you see, a simple museum can bring into life so many memories, so many information, so much information from the past that it is you can write books and you can write a lot of literature on every single particular art piece that is present in the museums. So that is one important contribution of the British towards India, where they have made sure that recording about our past becomes more important, whether good or bad, because even if some of the events of the past are bad, we can always learn from it, and if there are some good things which happened in the past, we can always feel proud and glorify it to have good feel proud of our country. Now, survey reports is another important aspect that began during the British time period only. You must have listened about census of India. This happens every 10 years where information about the people living in the country is recorded. So whether they are male or female, what kind of occupation they do, what age groups they fall under, all this information is recorded from the people of the country. Why this is important? Because obviously to make good policies which are actually beneficial for the people, for the welfare of people, you need all these kind of information. So this is covered under the census surveys. These census surveys were introduced by the Britishers only from 1881. So 1881, 1901. So like these, every 10 years they conducted these surveys, and as we know, even in the modern times in independent India, these surveys are being conducted, right? Apart from these census surveys, other kind of surveys were also prevalent, like archaeological surveys, like biological surveys, where they got information about different other aspects of the country. Under archaeological surveys, they got information about the different monuments. Under biological surveys, they got information about the different animal species that existed in the country. So they all got all this information so that they could do their planning in a better way. Now let us move to the next topic, indigenous literary sources. Let's understand this word first. Indigenous means basically local Indians. So what records were kept by the Britishers, they were called the administrative records, the official records, but these were unofficial. These included different travel logs. This included different autobiographies and biographies, the diary entries, some pilgrims that went to different places, so they also wrote about their experiences. So all these were included under indigenous records. And because they were mostly written by ordinary people, by the common people, they have their own significance, because there is no scope of interference from the Britishers here. They wrote what they felt, what they experienced. So yes, it is also true that these indigenous records can, it is difficult to, you can say, verify them. But yes, when there is a historian, that historian reads a lot of material before reconstructing the past. So a historian will not believe in a particular travel log word by word, but if that historian has read more travel logs of that particular region, of that particular place, and all of those travel logs have the same kind of information, then yes, they will believe that information. So yes, unofficial records or indigenous records need to be verified to have more assurance, but it is true that they have a lot of significance, because the administrative records or the official records did not provide us with the whole picture, and these records help us to get a better picture of our past. Newspapers were also introduced during this particular time. 1780 was a very important year where an Englishman, James Augustus Hickey, introduced the Bengal Gazette. It is often described as the first Indian newspaper, and following that we see that even many Indians also began their newspapers. In fact, newspapers became a very important aspect in spreading the nationalism movement across the different parts of the country. Many freedom fighters had brought their own newspapers. You have this picture of the Harizan newspaper, which was started by Mahatma Gandhi, but there were different freedom fighters who had set up their own newspapers, and they were running these newspapers with their own money. Some of these were Kesari, Young India, Tribune, and so on. Many of these newspapers were not in the English language, but they were written in the regional languages, because most people understood the regional languages only. For these newspapers, we use the term vernacular. So the vernacular press or the vernacular newspapers means that newspapers written in the local languages. We know that India is a diverse country, so Marathi, Gujarati, Tamil, Telugu, there's so many languages other than Hindi which are spoken by the people. So many of these newspapers were written in those languages, and we see that with time these newspapers actually became the you can say the instruments of change in the society, social changes in the society, whether it was the abolishment of the sati pratha or the widow remarriage. All these social ideas were shared across the society by the different freedom fighters or revolutionaries with the help of these newspapers. So we can see example of different other newspapers like Bombay Samachar was very important. We see Samachar Darpan, which was also very important. So all these newspapers served a very important purpose in bringing both political and social change in the society. Now Next important topic is about literature. So as India was becoming more and more literate and printing technologies had also improved, many books were written by the learned people of the society, by the educated people of the society. These books provided a lot of information about Indians, how India works, the past of the country, and also, as we discussed earlier, it gave a sense of patriotism, a sense of nationalism among Indians. So when Indians read books written by different freedom fighters such as Discovery of India by Jawaharlal Nehru, Hind Swaraj by Mahatma Gandhi, and Poverty and Un-British Rule by Dadabhai Naoroji, they got a lot of inspiration. They understood about their own country, and they also learned about the tactics which would help them fight with the British. So if we see that literature or books have a great role in the freedom struggle, and we will read more about these books during the course of our book. Now, books were also a great tool to bring about social changes. We already discussed that. There were many women writers that expressed their views, and these write-ups, these books helped in the upliftment of women in the society. One such example is of Rashundra Devi, who wrote the book Amar Jeevan. This book was written in Bangla language, and interestingly, this woman was a self-taught woman. You see, during that time period, it was not common for women to go to school and study. So many women were illiterate. But because Rashundra Devi was passionate about studying, she learned basic alphabet from her son's textbook, and with the help of people, with the help of her family members, she started reading. And not only did she read and understand the language, she also wrote a book which described her experiences as a housewife. So this shows that if one woman could do it, it inspired so many women during that time period that they could also read and study. Sarojini Naidu and other women writers also wrote about the status of women in the society, and they all talked about how they could uplift it. Not just women, when we talk about the social status of especially the deprived classes in our society, then also literature also gives us a lot of information. Writers like B.R. Ambedkar, who talked about the caste struggles within the country, provide a lot of information about the class and caste struggle during that time period, and it is a source of lot of information for us. So with that, we wrap up our chapter. In this chapter, we studied the importance of studying history, the importance of dates in study of history. We discussed also about the different periodizations and why these periodizations, while some of them are useful, they also have their own problems. And we also studied about the sources of history, mainly about the modern period, which sources of history are important for the study of modern period. So I hope you enjoyed this video lecture, and we will see you again in our next video lecture. Thank you so much for tuning in.